My name's Vanessa, I'm 23 years old, and I swear this year changed everything for me. You know those moments in life when people underestimate you so much, they think you'll just quietly take whatever scraps they give you? Yeah, that was me, at least in my family's eyes. It all started a few weeks before my birthday. Birthdays used to mean something to me: cake, family dinners, silly games when I was younger. But as I got older, it became this weird measuring stick of favoritism. My brother, Eric, always got the spotlight. Always. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate him, he's just the golden child. The one who can do no wrong. So when I overheard my dad talking about this year's birthday plans, I knew it was coming. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, pretending not to listen. And then, as casual as ever, my dad looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, this year we're only inviting your brother." My heart sank for a second, but then I caught myself smiling. I don't know if it was sarcasm or survival, but I forced out a calm, "Okay." He nodded and went back to scrolling on his phone like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. What they didn't know was that I'd been saving money for the past 2 years. I'd been working nights, freelancing, hustling on the side. And a month before, I'd done something they would never expect: I bought a villa by the sea. It wasn't just a house. It was freedom, it was escape, and it was power. So instead of sulking or begging to be included, I started planning. Not a little dinner. Not a casual night out. I wanted the kind of party that would light up every corner of social media. The kind of party my family couldn't ignore. And when the videos went viral, when my parents showed up uninvited at my villa door the next day, oh, that's when the real story began. The weeks leading up to the party were electric. I had never organized something this big before, but the thrill of it kept me going. I wanted every detail to scream, "I don't need your approval." I told my closest friends first. Madison, my ride or die since high school, nearly dropped her phone when I texted her a picture of the villa. "Vanessa, this isn't a house, it's a freaking movie set," she said when she finally came over to see it. And she was right. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, a deck big enough for a small concert, and an infinity pool that melted into the horizon. Soon enough, word spread. Friends of friends wanted to come. Even people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly remembered my birthday. Normally, I'd be annoyed, but this time, I welcomed it. The bigger, the better. I hired a local DJ who had just started gaining a following online, and I even managed to book a catering company that specialized in fresh seafood and cocktails. I spared no expense, not because I wanted to show off, but because I wanted this night to be unforgettable. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about having fun. It was about revenge, subtle but sharp. My parents wanted to exclude me? Fine. I would make myself impossible to ignore. The night of the party, the villa came alive. Music pulsed through the air, laughter spilled out onto the beach, and someone had set up sparklers by the pool. People filmed everything: dances, drinks, the ocean view. And as I scrolled through Instagram and TikTok later that night, I saw post after post tagged with my name, my villa, my party. By morning, I was trending in my own little corner of the internet. And then, just as the sun dipped low the following evening, I heard it, a knock on my villa door. When I opened it, there they were, my parents. I wasn't sure what I expected when I opened that door, but the sight of my parents standing there, stiff, uncomfortable, and completely out of place, was almost funny. My mom's face carried that tight smile she used whenever she didn't know whether to be polite or furious. My dad stood with his hands shoved into his pockets, like he was the one who had been wronged. "Vanessa," my mom started, her voice softer than usual. "We saw some videos." I leaned against the doorframe, deliberately calm. "Oh, really? From where?" My dad shifted his weight, avoiding my eyes. "Social media," he muttered, as if the words tasted sour. The silence between us stretched out. I could hear the muffled bass of the music still playing inside, the laughter of the few friends who had stayed the night. And for once, the roles felt reversed. They were the outsiders now, standing on my doorstep, wanting in. "I didn't know you had a place like this," my mom finally said, her eyes darting past me to the glimpse of the ocean behind the glass walls. I let a small smile curve my lips. "Yeah, well, there are a lot of things you don't know about me." They exchanged a look, one of those silent conversations parents have when they don't want to admit they've made a mistake. I almost laughed. "Can we come in?" my mom asked carefully. For a moment, I considered shutting the door. Letting them feel the sting of rejection the way I had when they so casually dismissed me in favor of my brother. The thought of it was tempting, so tempting. But instead, I stepped aside. "Sure. Come see what you didn't think was worth celebrating." As they walked in, looking around like tourists in a museum, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about showing off anymore. This was about taking control of my own story. And I wasn't done yet. They stepped inside, and for a moment, both of them went completely quiet. My mom's eyes flicked across the living room with its vaulted ceilings and glass walls that opened straight to the ocean. My dad ran his hand over the edge of the marble counter like he was trying to convince himself it was real. I walked ahead of them, barefoot, casual, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "So, this is the living area," I said, my voice deliberately light. "Big enough for everyone to gather. You know, everyone who was actually invited." My mom flinched, but she didn't say anything. I led them out to the deck, where the infinity pool still shimmered in the late afternoon sun. A couple of empty champagne glasses sat on the edge, and there were still faint traces of glitter in the water from the night before. Madison had joked about throwing in glow sticks, and it had been a hit. "People loved this spot," I said, leaning against the railing. "We had fireworks. Everyone was filming." I paused, looking straight at my dad. "Guess you didn't see those clips." He tightened his jaw but said nothing. Typical. When we stepped back inside, I gestured toward the guest rooms. I made sure there was space for everyone. You know, my friends, acquaintances. People who actually wanted to celebrate with me. My mom sighed. "Vanessa." I stopped and turned toward her, finally dropping the cheerful tour guide act. "What? You're surprised? You thought I'd just sit at home while you celebrated Eric again?" Her face softened. "That's not what we meant." I cut her off. "That's exactly what you meant." The silence stretched again, thick and heavy. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking under it. I was standing taller, sharper. And then I smiled. "But hey, don't worry. You'll get to hear all about the party. Everyone else already has." My mom sat down on the edge of the sofa, her hands folding and unfolding in her lap. My dad stayed standing, stiff as a statue, like he couldn't decide if he was angry or embarrassed. "You don't understand," my mom said, her voice quiet but tight. I crossed my arms. "No, I understand perfectly. You didn't want to celebrate me. You didn't think I was worth it. And now that the internet says otherwise, here you are, pretending you care." My dad finally spoke up, his tone sharp. "Don't twist this into some sob story, Vanessa. You've always been dramatic. We didn't mean it like that." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Didn't mean it? You looked me in the eye and told me you were only celebrating Eric this year. How else was I supposed to take it?" His face hardened, but there was something in his eyes, something like guilt. My mom reached for his arm, but he brushed her off and finally said what I knew had been hiding under the surface all along. "Eric's doing more with his life." "We thought it made sense to," he trailed off, realizing too late how cruel the word sounded. "To what?" I snapped. "Celebrate him and ignore me? Punish me for not living the life you wanted? For not being him?" The air was heavy with the truth now, the truth they'd never said but always implied. My mom looked at me, her eyes glassy. "That's not fair." "No," I cut in, my voice firm. "What's not fair is years of being pushed aside, years of being the afterthought. And the best part? You didn't even notice I was building this for myself. This villa. My business. My life. All without you. They both stared at me, speechless. For once, I had the upper hand. For once, they had to face what they'd done. And I wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed. I stood there in the middle of the living room, the ocean glowing gold behind me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the unwanted daughter. I felt powerful. They looked small, hesitant, cornered. And I wasn't going to waste the moment. You know what's funny? I started, my voice steady, almost calm. I used to beg for your approval. Every little achievement, I'd run to you, waiting for a pat on the back. Straight A's in school, my art portfolio, even the scholarship I won. And every single time, you brushed it off. You said, "That's good, but look at Eric." My mom closed her eyes, her shoulders curling in like she was shrinking. My dad's jaw clenched tighter, but he didn't interrupt. So I stopped telling you things, I continued. I worked nights, saved money, and bought this villa while you were busy acting like I didn't exist. And now, suddenly, when you see people online celebrating me, you show up? No. You don't get to walk in here and pretend you cared all along. My dad finally snapped, "We're your parents. We don't have to apologize for every decision we make." I stepped closer, my voice sharp as glass. No, you don't. But don't expect me to respect you for decisions that cut me out of my own family. You celebrated my brother like he was a king while treating me like a placeholder. And now you're standing in a house you didn't even know I had, shocked that I did something without you. That's the difference between me and you. I built this without tearing anyone down. You can't say the same. The silence that followed was brutal. My mom's eyes filled with tears, and for once, my dad didn't have anything left to say. They were both trapped in the truth, and I wasn't about to let them out. I leaned back, my tone cool. So here's how it's going to be: either you start treating me like I matter, or you keep pretending Eric is your only child. But don't ever come knocking on my door again expecting me to be okay with scraps. Their faces said everything: the shame, the regret, the sting of realizing they had underestimated me. And for the first time, I didn't care if they stayed silent. I'd already won. My dad was the first to move, running his hand over his face like he was trying to wipe away the weight of everything I had just said. He let out a long breath, the kind of sigh that comes when someone knows they've lost control of the conversation. "You think you've got it all figured out," he muttered, his voice lower now. "But family isn't about keeping score." I tilted my head, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Really? Because that's all you've ever done. You just made sure I was always the one losing." My mom's voice cracked when she finally spoke. "Vanessa, please, you don't understand how much pressure we felt to push Eric forward. He always needed more help, more attention. We thought you were strong enough to take care of yourself." That stung, even though I didn't let it show. Strong enough to take care of yourself. That wasn't love, that was neglect, dressed up as a compliment. "So you punished me for being strong?" I asked softly, but my words were sharp enough to cut through both of them. My mom's eyes brimmed with tears. She reached out like she wanted to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Not this time. Vanessa," she whispered, "we made mistakes. We should have done better by you." I waited for my dad to say something, anything. But instead, he stayed quiet, staring out the window at the horizon like he couldn't bear to look at me. That silence spoke louder than words. And it told me everything I needed to know. My mom felt guilt, but my dad felt pride standing in the way. I looked at them both and said, "You don't get to erase what you did just because you regret it now. I'll decide when, or if, you earn a place back in my life. Until then, this is my house, my rules, and my life." My mom wiped her eyes, nodding weakly, while my dad stayed stone-faced. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of either reaction. The silence dragged on, thick and uncomfortable. I could see the tension in my dad's jaw, the way he refused to look at me, and the redness in my mom's eyes as she tried not to break down in front of me. I walked over to the sliding glass doors and pulled them open, letting the ocean air sweep in. The sound of the waves filled the villa, drowning out the awkwardness for a moment. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed, and stared out at the horizon. "You know what I should do?" I said finally, turning back to them. "I should tell you to leave. Right now. Just like you left me out." My dad straightened, ready to argue, but I held up a hand. "But," I continued, letting the word hang, "that would be too easy. You'd walk out of here and pretend none of this ever happened. You'd go home, tell yourselves that I overreacted, and by next week, it would all be swept under the rug." I walked slowly back toward them, my heels clicking on the floor, each step deliberate. "No. I'm not throwing you out. Not yet. You're going to sit here, in my house, and feel what it's like to be an outsider. You'll hear the echoes of the party, see the mess, the photos, the proof of everything you weren't a part of." My mom's face crumpled, and she nodded silently. My dad clenched his fists, but he didn't move. I knew he hated every second of this, which only made me feel stronger. "You'll stay," I said firmly, "but as guests. Nothing more. And you'll watch me live the life you thought I couldn't." I sat down across from them, calm, collected, almost enjoying the silence now. For once, I wasn't the one desperate for their approval. They were the ones desperate to be in my space. And I was going to let them stew in it. The evening stretched on, heavy with unspoken words. My parents sat stiffly on the sofa, my mom fidgeting with the hem of her blouse while my dad stared at the floor like it might offer him an escape. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat across from them, calm as ever. Every so often, I'd catch my mom glancing at the photos still scattered across the counter, pictures from the party my friends had printed out, little Polaroids of me smiling, dancing, laughing. It was like she was seeing a version of me she'd never cared to notice before. And then, just when the silence felt unbearable, my phone buzzed. It was Eric. I smirked at the screen before answering on speaker. "Hey." His voice came through casual, almost smug. "Vanessa. I just saw all these videos of some crazy party by the ocean. Don't tell me that was you." I shot a look at my parents, who were both suddenly very interested in the call. "Yeah," I said, my tone deliberately light. "That was me. My villa. My party. My life." There was a pause on the other end, then a laugh. "Wow. Guess I underestimated you." My dad flinched at the word underestimated, though Eric probably hadn't meant it with the same sting I felt. "You should come by sometime," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh wait, guess you weren't invited either." Eric chuckled awkwardly, clearly not knowing what to say. "Maybe next time." When I hung up, the silence in the room was deafening. My mom looked like she was on the verge of tears again, while my dad's expression was unreadable, anger, shame, maybe both. I leaned back and said quietly, "See? Even Eric's surprised. You thought I was invisible, and now the whole world is watching." For the first time, I saw doubt crack through my dad's mask. And that crack was all I needed. I should have known Eric wouldn't just leave it at a phone call. A few hours later, just as the sun had disappeared and the villa lights glowed against the waves, I heard another knock at the door. I didn't even have to guess who it was. When I opened it, there he stood, my brother, dressed in his usual casual but polished way, grinning like he'd just walked into a surprise he didn't know how to process. "Vanessa," he said, stepping forward, "you weren't kidding. This place is insane." I crossed my arms, blocking his way for a moment. "Funny, I don't remember inviting you." He raised his hands in mock surrender. "Relax, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see it for myself. Everyone's been talking about it." His eyes flicked past me into the house, and I could see the exact moment he noticed our parents sitting awkwardly on the sofa. His smile faltered. "Oh. Didn't know it was a family reunion too." I stepped aside slowly, letting him in. Welcome to the party you didn't get an invitation to. Eric gave me a look, half amused, half wary, as he walked past. You always did have a flair for drama. The tension in the room thickened as he sat down, glancing between me and our parents. So, what's going on here? He asked carefully. My dad finally spoke, his voice clipped. Your sister decided to throw herself a spectacle. I shot back instantly, no, Dad. I celebrated myself when you wouldn't. Eric leaned back, his eyebrows raised, clearly picking up on the storm brewing. Wow, he said slowly. Guess I walked into something. My mom looked at him desperately. Eric, don't. But Eric held up a hand. No, Mom. I think I need to hear this. His eyes turned back to me. Vanessa, tell me what happened. And just like that, for the first time ever, I had an audience where Eric wasn't the star. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for once I didn't feel that familiar shadow that had always loomed over me. Eric wasn't the golden boy in that moment, he was just my brother, curious, waiting for the truth. You want to know what happened? I asked. My voice wasn't shaky, it wasn't bitter, it was steady, sharp, like a blade that had been sharpened for years. Eric nodded slowly. Yeah. I do. So I told him. I told him about the conversation in the kitchen, about how Dad had looked me straight in the eye and said, this year we're only inviting your brother. I told him how it wasn't the first time, how it was years of being the afterthought, the one who didn't deserve a spotlight. I told him how I had stopped telling them about my achievements because it never mattered. My mom sat there, eyes glistening with tears she couldn't hold back anymore. My dad looked like he'd swallowed something bitter, his jaw locked tight, but he didn't interrupt. And then, I said, gesturing around the villa, I bought this place. With my own money. My own work. And I threw the biggest party of my life, not to prove anything to you, but to finally celebrate myself. And the moment it hit social media, guess who showed up at my door? Not to celebrate me, but because they couldn't stand being left out. The room went quiet. Eric leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in his face I had never seen before, guilt. Vanessa, he started, then stopped. He shook his head and let out a low breath. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, I said. Why would you? Everything was always handed to you. You never had to wonder if you mattered in this family. He didn't argue. He didn't deflect. He just sat there, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. And for once, the silence in the room wasn't suffocating me, it was suffocating them. Eric rubbed his face with both hands, then leaned back, staring at the ceiling like he was trying to piece together years of things he'd ignored. You're right, he said finally, his voice low. I never questioned it. I just went along with it. They gave me everything, and I didn't think twice about what that meant for you. His words hit heavier than I expected. Maybe because deep down, I had always wanted him to see it, to say it. My dad shifted uncomfortably. Eric, don't. But Eric cut him off, his voice sharper this time. No, Dad. She's right. You both did this. And I let it happen because it benefited me. He turned back to me, his expression almost pained. I should have spoken up. I should have noticed. I didn't, and that's on me. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I had spent so long building my armor against them that I hadn't expected Eric to actually take responsibility. Do you have any idea, I asked softly, what it felt like to sit in that house, watching you get celebrated for every little thing while I was treated like I didn't exist? Eric's eyes dropped. No. I didn't. But I do now. He let out a heavy sigh, then added, and I'm sorry, Vanessa. I mean it. My mom let out a sob, covering her mouth with her hand. My dad's face was stone, but I could see the crack in his pride widening. I leaned forward, locking eyes with my brother. You don't get to erase it with an apology. But admitting it? That's a start. Eric nodded, and for once, I believed him. And just like that, the balance shifted again, because now it wasn't me against everyone. It was me and Eric, finally seeing the truth, against the silence of our parents. Eric sat forward, elbows on his knees, staring hard at our parents. The easy grin he always wore was gone. What replaced it was something I had never seen before: resolve. "You two owe her more than you realize," he said firmly. "And I'm not just talking about this birthday. This is years of pushing her aside, pretending she didn't need you. I should have seen it sooner, but I can't stay quiet about it now." My dad's jaw tightened. "Eric, this isn't the time." "No," Eric snapped, cutting him off. "It's exactly the time. You always said family comes first, but you didn't treat us equally. You treated me like the only one who mattered. And you treated her like she'd always figure it out alone. That's not love. That's favoritism." My mom's shoulders shook as she cried quietly, but my dad stayed frozen, refusing to admit anything. "Do you know how embarrassing it is," Eric continued, "to sit here and realize my own sister had to prove her worth to strangers on the internet before you even bothered to notice her? That's not on her, that's on you." My heart hammered in my chest. Hearing Eric speak like that, for me, was surreal. I had spent my whole life watching him accept the pedestal they placed him on, and now he was stepping down from it, just to stand by my side. My dad finally spoke, his voice rough. "You think I don't love both of you?" Eric didn't flinch. "You don't show it. Not equally. And actions matter more than words." The room went still. My mom wiped her eyes, whispering, "He's right." For once, I didn't feel like I was screaming into a void. I had backup. And watching my parents sit there, cornered by the very son they had always lifted up, I realized this was the sweetest form of revenge. The silence stretched so long it felt like the walls of the villa were holding their breath. My mom stared down at her hands, trembling, while my dad sat rigid, his pride battling against the truth that Eric had just shoved in his face. Finally, my mom's voice cracked the air. "He's right. Vanessa's right." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "We failed you. We thought we were being practical, giving Eric the push he needed. But in doing that, we ignored you. We made you feel like you didn't matter." I didn't look away. I wanted her to see the strength in my eyes, the part of me they had refused to acknowledge for so long. My dad exhaled sharply, like the words were poison in his chest. I should have treated you better." His voice was gravel, low and unwilling, but real. "I pushed you aside because I thought you'd survive without us. I thought," he trailed off, rubbing his forehead. "I was wrong." Hearing those words should have felt triumphant, and part of me did feel it, the satisfaction of forcing him to admit what he'd never dared say before. But another part of me, the girl who had once begged for scraps of their attention, felt the ache of how late this confession was. "You can't undo it," I said quietly. "You can't erase the years you made me invisible." My dad nodded, his face hard with regret. My mom whispered, "We can't change the past. But if you'll let us, maybe we can change how we are now." Eric looked at me, waiting to see what I'd do. For the first time in my life, the choice was mine, not theirs. And I wasn't going to waste it. The weight of their words hung in the air. For years, I had dreamed of this moment, my parents finally admitting they were wrong. And now that it was here, I felt both powerful and oddly calm. I stood up, letting the ocean breeze drift through the open doors behind me. "You're right, you can't change the past. You can't take back the birthdays, the school events, the moments where I needed you and you weren't there. That's always going to be part of me." They both sat quietly, listening, waiting. For once, I held the power, and they knew it. But, I continued, I didn't build this life just to keep looking back. I built it so I could move forward. And if you want to be part of it, you'll do it on my terms. No more favoritism. No more excuses. You treat me as your daughter, not as some afterthought. Otherwise, you don't get to be here. My dad lowered his head, finally stripped of the pride he had clung to all night. My mom nodded through tears. We'll earn it, she whispered. Eric stood then, walking over to me. He put a hand on my shoulder, his voice steady. And I'll make sure they do. For the first time, I didn't feel like the forgotten sibling. I felt like the one in control. That night, they didn't leave as conquerors returning from a party. They left humbled, quieter than I'd ever seen them. And when the door closed behind them, I turned to Eric. You really meant what you said? I asked. He nodded. Yeah. I should have had your back a long time ago. But I've got it now. I smiled, the tension finally easing out of me. Good. Because this time, it's my story. And I'm finally the one writing it. We stepped out onto the deck, the ocean stretching endlessly before us. For the first time in years, I felt free, not because they had changed, but because I had. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.